Hey there, guys, and welcome to another Factorio Friday Facts discussion, number 277, GUI Progress Update, and I'm joined, as always, by Flixian.
Hello, everyone.
Alrighty, so we get some stuff written by Kovarex and Clonin. So the first part is about the GUI Progress by Kovarex. So this is kind of a continuation of the last status report from Friday Facts 269. And the biggest bottleneck of the 17 release is the GUI. I like to believe that we have learned a lot from the pitfalls of collaborative creative process of the GUI. This is the typical way we redesign the GUI. So we're just going to summarize a lot of this. Basically, they had a really, really poor, inefficient way of redesigning and coming up with ideas for the GUI, which made it take way longer than it should, basically, is what all this summarizes.
Yeah, it was basically horribly inefficient. Not everyone was in on all the changes that were being planned and that were going to be implemented, and then they figured out a way to plan everything and make sure everyone was clued into what's being implemented.
Right, and that's what the second part is. Again, not going to read every single bullet point, but basically they kind of just pass it around to the specific people who need to interact with it in a correct order. To actually have it work. Mostly Kovarex, Twinson, and Albert, it looks like, are the main guys here who are working on it. So they kind of just, give it to these people after certain steps to kind of streamline the process.
Yeah, it went from random ad hoc discussions to a structured process for getting this done.
Correct. And which is good. The one thing I will say about this, and I've said this before, is I think they are desperately, this is not just with the GUI, I think they are desperately lacking organization in their work, in their in their office, because this type of stuff seems to happen a lot. I feel like they definitely need some sort of, project manager or office manager. They had an office manager for a while, and I distinctly remember while that person was there, for the short time that they were, it seemed like things were getting done much quicker and more efficiently. It's good they figured this out on their own, but I'm just saying they could probably benefit from some type of project manager or something.
Yeah, so at my job, we have technical people and we have functional people. The technical people are the developers who actually get the work done. The functional people are there to organize the developers and make sure that things are being done efficiently.
Right, and I think that's key, because they currently don't have any of those quote-unquote functional people. It's just a bunch of developers who aren't making things work efficiently or timely. But
yeah, and then the other main job of the functional people is to accurately determine what needs to be developed.
Right. So yeah, very important, just something I want to throw out there. So they figured this out, though. So having the UX documents, UI mockups are always available proved to be a huge time saver. Not only it helps us to solve the communication problems, we also don't have to remember and re-articulate decisions from some time ago, as we can just open the document and see what we agreed on and instantly continue. A good part of this strict pipeline is that we now have better knowledge of the state of progress. These are the GUI changes that we hope to deliver for 0.17. Not going to cover every single one of these. So this top part is basically the progress, general UX, UX draft, UX review, UI mockup, UI review, implementation, implementation review, and then final review for all these different parts of the game GUI. So pretty much you can see the blueprint library is not touched whatsoever. Nothing's done on it.
And barely anything's been done on the character screen.
Yeah. And chat icon selector, pretty much non-existent. Help overlay, not too much has been done. So what we have, I'll just go over what's actually complete so far. Map generator, so that's good. Other settings, interface settings, sound settings. So this is basically just all the menu setting, all the menu buttons. Now, it's somewhat, I don't know how to put this. It's somewhat concerning to me that one of the biggest new things coming with 17, which is the rework of blueprints and stuff. And the blueprint library is the one thing that literally has nothing done on it. Like, I don't... To me, I would have done this in a different order. You know, like, I would have worked on the main, like, the big feature stuff that needs a new GUI rather than... Or first before this other stuff.
To me, this looks like they wanted to tackle the simple things first, the ones they knew they could finish quickly, and left all the difficult ones for later.
Yeah, which typically isn't the best practice, but you live and learn, I guess.
This is where a functional person would come in handy. The functional person can prioritize things.
Exactly. So there's that. Now onto this next little part. You can see that there's still a lot to do, but the work tends to accelerate as more and more of the GUI layout tile set standards are being finalized and reused. The conclusion is 0.17 experimental in January is possible, but it might be February as well. So we have a delay. Who could have possibly guessed that, guys?
To the shock of no one, there might be a delay in the software product.
I would say there will 100% be a delay, because they said January and now it's delayed, and they say it might be February. I'm going to say it's March. And I'm being 100% serious. I'm saying like beginning of March is when we're getting 0.17, because I've been playing the game for like 4.5 years now, and I've watched their releases and I've read tons of Friday Facts, and from my experience, I would not be surprised whatsoever if they delay it past February as well. Which is kind of disappointing. But they get tons of praise for releasing, all things considered, very stable experimental versions and stuff, and that's really important. So I do definitely support that. Now, there were some comments on the forum discussion with this that I read through, where people were saying, like, why delay the release so long just for the GUI? Why not like release the gameplay, change stuff, and then release the GUI updates, a little down the road in 17? And I can see there being some problems with this, but on the other hand, I would agree mostly with those people saying that. Like things like the blueprint library would be affected, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there are the people saying, why not, just like you just said, why not release the gameplay changes and then release the GUI as part of the point releases of 17? Maybe they have enough of the GUI changes already merged into the main branch that it's going to be a pain to untangle it.
That's
like it would take longer to untangle it than it would be to just wait and release the whole thing.
That's definitely a possibility.
And again, I just want to point out, I have no access to the code base. I have no idea if that's a true statement. I'm speculating here.
Right. And I'm speculating too in the fact that I say it wouldn't be a problem for the most part. I really don't, because and I don't want to go into this too much, because I don't want this to be a 40-minute video of me ranting, but I was saying to Afflixian before we started this video that Factorio is probably the only game that I've ever played that actually does releases like this, and I've never understood it, where they put like 6, 8, 9 months, a year plus worth of work into an update, a huge update, and release all this stuff all at once, which is great. But even aside from the huge delay between updates, which is a problem on its own, it's like then there's all these bug reports, like so many, even though they test it, even though all things considered it's pretty stable, there's still tons of bug reports, tons of issues, because they release so many dang features all in one update. And some person on the forum pointed out and showed, like 0.12 had I think it was 35 subversions, so that's like 12.30, 35, so on and so forth. And then 0.14 had 40, 0.15 had 45, and 0.16 had 51 subversions. And it's because they release so much in one update. It's I've never understood why they don't release like multiple updates, like one every few months or something, or that have like just some of the features, like maybe like the science pack change and you know technology change or something in one, or maybe like the building stuff, like the copy paste, the rotating blueprints and stuff in another one, and then like the GUI all on its own update, like within 17. I've never
Yeah,
understood why they don't do that.
yeah, I understand what you're saying here, and I have a term that I believe explains what happened here, and that term is either scope creep or feature creep. They're gearing up to release 1.0, and so they're trying not to do so many more releases of the game before they get to 1.0, and they think, oh, we're so close to the end. Let's just get it all in one update. But then they realize, oh wait, if we're going to do that, then we should do this as well. If we're going to do this, then we should do this other thing too. And it kind of snowballs, and that's exactly what we've seen here. The 0.16.51 was released sometime in spring of last year, I think.
Yeah.
It's either spring or early summer. And since then, it's essentially been scope or feature creep, where there's nobody regulating up until that Friday Facts from a couple weeks or a couple months ago, where they said we should release something in January.
Right. And that's basically what I'm getting at. This has been a problem for literally every release. Like this isn't, for this particular release, you are right about, 0. 0.1, and they don't want to do too many release versions before that. But this has been going on for like the entire time I've ever played the game. It's like there's no, and it's exactly what you're saying is like the feature creep and stuff, because I've talked to guys, on the team, and they're just talking about like development and all that, and this is kind of what's being said is that someone will start something and then they finish, but they're waiting for someone else to do something, so then they just start something new, and then that second person finishes but is waiting for that other person and starts their thing, and it's like I feel like they desperately need someone monitoring this and being like, all right, you do this, this, and this, and just like organize it, and once you're done, you're done. Or you start working on something that's for 18, or something, where instead of just constantly doing this and just pushing the release back more and more and more.
Yeah. So this should probably be the last thing that we say on this topic, so we can move on to the rest of the Friday Facts. At work today, I just happened to have a lunch session where someone was presenting on the topic of product owners, which is an agile term for someone who's responsible for basically overseeing the product and deciding when releases should go out and monitoring the market to find out what features are in demand and that kind of thing. And a product owner would be the one saying, we need to cut a release. Stop working on anything else, get this done and release it.
Right, exactly. That is definitely,
which again goes back to the whole separation between technical and functional people.
Mm-hmm. Completely. So yeah, that's a good thing to close that out on. So now we move into the little details. So basically, one of the reasons work progress is slower is that they're making final versions of everything, and they want to make it feel polished before we consider it finished, since there won't be time to come back to it. So like in every settings menu, we have the reset to default button now. The first logical step was to only enable the button when some of the options are different from the defaults, but the next logical step was to somehow let the user know what settings will be changed when he uses the reset button. So we simply highlight all the non-default settings when hovering the reset button, and it feels nice since suddenly you have instant feedback on what you expect from the action, which is super nice. And you can see there like what it's highlighting.
Yeah, and this right here, in my opinion, is an example of feature creep. Yeah, right. This is super cool, but this was not in the original plan. Like they implemented what the original requirement was, and then they got to it, and said, oh, it would be nice to have this. Oh, we should do this for all the pages too.
Yeah, and that's exactly, and that's a perfect example of something that maybe could have come in like 0.18 or could have come in a subversion of 0.17 even, because they like in 0.16 they changed like a science pack. I think it was purple or something like halfway through through the subversions, and it's like, so they could just do something like that here.
Yeah, I agree. This was not. It's a nice to have. It's not part of the minimum viable product, in my opinion.
Yep, definitely agree. So now scaling problem and solution. So basically, there's just a scaling problem. And a solution. You said you had some stuff to talk about on this, Flixian.
Yeah. So on the forums, there were people asking why scaling was capped at 200%. And the answer to that from Kovarex was because 100% assumes a 1080p monitor, and 200% would mean a 4K monitor.
Right.
And who has bigger than a 4K monitor at this point?
Yeah, exactly. Very good point.
They did say, though, that it is trivial to uncap the scaling because it's literally just a multiplier.
Okay, so yeah, that's really good news if they need to, and at some point in the future.
Yeah, and the main a good summary of the scaling problem is things are, or pixels are only integers. So if something is 20 pixels and there's 2 pixels between, if you scale it to 120%, great. The buttons are 24 pixels, but what about the gap between them? Is it 2 or 3?
Right. Okay, I see that issue then.
And so then you lose your aspect ratio essentially.
Right. Okay. Okay, makes sense.
And then the image right after that, not the one that says word, but the one that says select filter, that's talking about all those icons there. They were designed at 32 by 32 pixels. So they need to upscale them 64 by 64 to allow for the scaling.
Okay. So yeah, they have to like upscale every single one of these icons then.
285 items, 27 signals, fluids, and more.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a lot of work. Since they render it from 3D models anyway, it should be manageable. We'll probably push the high-res icons to 0.17 during experimental phase.
Yeah, so what that means, it's going to be a point release of 0.17. It's not going to be with the initial 0.17.
Right. They should take hints off of their own thing here and do that with other stuff. So now procedural wave defense. So there is a scenario, a base game scenario that Clonin made, which is a wave defense. I played it several times on stream. It's actually quite fun the first 2 times. And basically what he's getting at is that since the map doesn't change at all, once you have a set of blueprints and tactics, repeat plays are mostly boring, which I would agree. And with recent changes and the great work by Tiogas, the procedural map generation is working really well and is very reliable for a given set of settings, so that's good. This gave me the idea that it might be possible to make the wave defense use a new map every time. I've been experimenting with some preset values, and I believe it will work really well. Although he's kind of at an indecision within himself, there's some advantages and disadvantages to both. So, advantages of a pre-generated map is the map can be specifically designed and tweaked for better experience. He can change how the biters move, where to place trees, resources, etc. We don't have to worry about map generation engine changes breaking the scenario. It is a reliable experience for all players. People can share specific tips, design tactics that are more specific for the map. And then advantages for the procedural maps is the scenario has a much greater replayability. We don't have to worry about migrating map data, tiles, entities, etc. to new versions. Any improvements in the map generation will be reflected in the scenario. People can't cheese the scenario using other people's blueprints. We can add some configuration options for people who want to tailor the experience. It is easy to add support for servers to continue running after victory/defeat. Um, so, what are your thoughts on
So
this?
this one is basically give your thoughts on the forums.
Right.
I personally haven't played the wave defense, but I can see the advantages and disadvantages of both approaches. The preset custom map is essentially like a campaign. Like
Mm.
my mind immediately went to StarCraft.
Yep.
Like the
Me too.
StarCraft campaign is a set map, same map every single time. If you know the strategy to beat it, you can beat it every single time.
Right. And that kind of makes it lose a little interest. Um,
The procedural map, to continue using the StarCraft analogy, the procedural map is playing against another player.
Basically. Okay. Yeah.
Because I just realized the maps don't actually change in StarCraft. The people
No.
you're playing against don't do the same thing.
Right. Exactly. Now, I have some thoughts on this, and this isn't really going to be helpful to to the devs because it's irrelevant to the map procedural map thing. Well, not really. It's that I think I definitely see the advantages and disadvantages, and honestly, I can't pick one myself even because they both do have very strong pros and cons. However, for me personally, the map was not really the main issue for me that made me lose interest. I've played quite a few wave defense, tower defense games. One of my all-time favorites being one of the custom game modes in Warcraft 3. There were a ton of custom games. One of them being Winter Mall, which was a tower wave defense. And the difference, and those maps were always the same. So my point is that those maps were always the same, just like the one in Factorio. But for Factorio, the difference here for me is what made me lose interest is the fact that there's like not really any variety within like with the gameplay. Like regardless of the map, there's only 4 types of biters and 4 types of spitters you're ever going to get. Period. And that's it. And there's only 3 types of turrets and artillery. That's all you can ever get. And they don't upgrade. You can upgrade the damage of them, but you can't upgrade the effects of them or anything. So for me personally, that's more of what the issue is. Because in these other like wave defense games, is there were 30 or 40 different enemy types. There were like 10 or 15 different races you can choose from, each of which had like 6 or 7 different unique towers. And obviously you can't really do that in Factorio, but it's like the map would, a change to the map would maybe help, but I think that it would still become boring fairly quickly, just due to the fact that it's always the same 4 enemies of each type. It's always the same 3 turrets that don't change, so on and so forth.
Yeah, wave defense is more of an RTS kind of map scenario. Factorio is not really an RTS. It's a simulation game.
Right, exactly. It's a good way to put it. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Leave your thoughts on the forums for this and anything else. And I think, do you have anything else to add for the Friday Facts?
Speed up development on 17, please. I'd like to have it this month, if at all possible.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to have 1.0 before 2020, but that's doubtful too. 17 this month would be great, but yeah, that'd be nice. So thanks as always, guys. Leave your thoughts below, and until next time, we will see you later.